Hi, my name is Pat Stedman, and I'm a Colorado State Senator. I represent downtown Denver in the State Senate.
How long have you been a state senator?
Oh, about 2 months.
Cool. Really?
Yeah.
What did you do before that?
I own my own lobbying business, and I worked at the state capitol for 15 years lobbying for progressive nonprofit groups and public education, women's rights, gay rights,
Wow.
kids' rights, civil liberties.
And what kind of specific LGBT legislation have you lobbied for that has passed?
Well, we've passed actually 6 bills in the past 4 legislative sessions, starting with hate crimes protection that includes sexual orientation and transgendered people within our state's hate crime law. Colorado was the first state in the country to have a hate crimes law. It passed in 1988, but it took us 17 years of trying to add sexual orientation to the list, but we finally got that done in 2005. Then we passed employment non-discrimination, also protecting transgender people in addition to sexual orientation. We passed 2-parent adoption so that unmarried couples can adopt each other's kids and the kids can have 2 legal parents rather than just one. We passed anti-discrimination laws that prohibit discrimination in housing and places of public accommodation, public education, consumer credit, advertising, a whole realm of anti-discrimination protections. This year we passed a law allowing state employees to add domestic partners to their state-sponsored health benefits and group benefit plans. And we also passed a law this year called the Designated Beneficiaries Act, which is a version of domestic partnership. The idea is that unmarried people can designate one another to have certain protections under state law and have the other person be treated for many, many purposes just like a spouse would be, so that they can visit in the hospital or make medical decisions in a time of emergency, inherit an estate if someone dies without a will. All kinds of probate protections and end-of-life issues are all incorporated in there. So it's about 2/3 of the rights and protections you would get in a full-blown Domestic Partnership Act. And of course we want to come back at some point and expand it to that full-blown civil unions or domestic partnership.
Have you faced any opposition to the pro-equality legislation that you
Oh
passed?
yeah, there was all kinds of pushback over the years. There was a woman named Marilyn Musgrave. She used to be a member of the Congress, but she was defeated in the last election. That was a very happy occasion. But she got her start in Colorado, first on a school board and then in the state legislature. And back in the mid-90s, she would every year introduce legislation to ban gay marriage. And for the first 4 or 5 times she tried it, we stopped her. But actually the 5th or 6th time around, it actually passed. And then a few years after that, Colorado voters amended the state constitution to ban same-sex marriage in our constitution. So as far as what power the legislature has to address equality issues, we can go up to civil unions. The constitutional amendment wasn't the really noxious kind that also banned civil unions, but marriage is something that we'll either have to have a court decision imposing it or a statewide vote to change our state constitution. And that's probably a little bit further out on the horizon when I think those things might happen.
And with the passing of the statewide employment non-discrimination, did you hear a need for that? Were people saying
Oh yeah, I mean, we know that discrimination still occurs, based on race and religion and gender and age, disability. Sexual orientation discrimination occurs too. We know there are people that are using the law. Now that it's been on the books for two years, there's been a certain amount of litigation that's taken place. And what that tells me is that it's working.
You said that the most recent thing passed was the designated partner?
Designated beneficiary.
Okay.
We purposely picked a name that was like a mouthful, thinking that if the right wanted to come after us and try to repeal the measure, it would be hard for them to campaign against it because it's such a mouthful and nobody really understands what it means. But it sounds like something you do in the HR office at work where you sign up, for the insurance plan and the pension plan and you designate certain people to be your beneficiaries. It's the same idea. Unmarried people can pick a person that they want to be the one to be there for them and designate them to have these rights and protections under state law. And so even though it's kind of a cumbersome name, and maybe that would make it hard to campaign against, we still think, and we're busy with a marketing campaign right now and an education campaign, that people can get their arms around it and understand what it is. That this person is designated to be the one to make medical decisions for me if I'm in a coma and I'm hooked to a respirator, to make decisions about whether or not to pull the plug, to inherit my estate, to make decisions about burial and cremation or organ and tissue donation, on down the line, anything that has to do with your body and death and dying and your estate and your property after you're gone. This designated beneficiary is, under state law, the person that you have given these powers and responsibilities to. And it's going to work for unmarried couples a lot like all of the things in state law that married couples take advantage of and take for granted and don't even realize that they have until they need them.